Hello everyone, welcome back to CryptoCache. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day here. Happy Tuesday to you. We're taking a look, of course, at Bitcoin, see what's going on with this guy, and help us understand best practice, big picture, the whole nine yards. So if you are new to the channel, just know I love teaching people to trade. I really hope you can learn something here today, and my goal is to effectively help you become a better trader, right? That's kind of the purpose of, well, all these YouTube videos, and of course my Trading Academy community and Signal group. So check that out at your earliest convenience. CryptoCache.tech is a website, link in the description below. If you want to become a better trader, we've got a lot of members coming over here, new members, specifically to attend my academy, but also to learn from the signals that I send out because, well, at this point, we're firing in all cylinders, you know. And the good news is a lot of the shorts that we have open are coming to a head in a good way. We're hitting our profit targets. We just hit our third at like 70 some odd percent for Ethereum. And there's possibility for further downside, but on the same accord at this time, it does look like things are kind of recovering and stabilizing a little bit. And we'll talk about that and much more. So first thing we want to look at, of course, and this comes to, you know, it ties into that stabilization, so to speak, is the dollar index here. First thing to note here, of course, is that typically when the dollar index goes up, Bitcoin goes down. They're not exactly inversely paired, but they are very, very close. So in that sense, here with dollar index having a good day today, we should expect a break even or possibly even further downside from Bitcoin. Coincidentally, today is a red day even still for Bitcoin, regards to that recent pump we just saw in the last hour or two. So that being said, we've got a strong support level here. Again, previous all-time high there for dollar index, or at least a high for the most recent period, and effectively continuing to progress higher from there. And then, of course, comes down to retest that level, as well as the 50-day SIP moving average. So we've got a couple of supports there in that regard, whereas the price action should and will likely continue to progress higher. We can go ahead and even draw out a trend line here, of course, kind of see what that's going to look like potentially in the near future. So this is not positive for Bitcoin in that sense, just because dollar index goes up, Bitcoin commonly goes down. All right, again, not 100% direct, it's not exact, but it is a very similar correlation, and this could explain a lot of what's happening right now. So just generally speaking, that's kind of where we're at there. The traditional markets as well are kind of even. I would say, you know, break even or drawing dead. Nothing really exponential here, but you can kind of obviously see as well there's somewhat of a support / resistance area right here for right about 13,000 for NASDAQ. Again, just throwing some stuff out there, of course. There's no definitive line in the sand here, but these things do help us. In other words, when the traditional markets are increasing and the dollar index comes down, Bitcoin goes up. That's essentially what we're looking for. So what we want to see happen is the US dollar index essentially continue to progress lower and break that lower support to effectively allow for Bitcoin to take off. All right, again, so no guarantees on that. Again, not exactly directly correlated, but very, very close. So those are just kind of some things to help preface so you understand specifically what's going on outside of the traditional Bitcoin market, in the, you know, more so in the traditional market versus the non-traditional, which is essentially Bitcoin. So let's talk about some of these things here, because we've already looked at you know, the monthly, we looked at that yesterday, and also the weekly too, and we can kind of see that in general, we're above some nice key level resistances that are now working as supports, and those are ranging right in about the 21,000 range. Okay, so right in that average there, we have a couple of strong moving averages that are important to note, and those are helping us likely in the near future. So again, the realistic probability of the price action coming down to 14,000, at least in the immediate future, seems very low unless there's some crazy fundamental catalyst. World War III, whatever the case is, those things could push it down further. But for now, pending no nonsensical news, we should be able to see the price action continue to make higher highs and higher lows. And what I mean by that is, if we can see here, we are doing so. I had drew this trend line just this morning to kind of signify that we should likely see a bounce somewhere in the range of 22,500, possibly as low as 22,000. So that should be the immediate bottom. Even if it comes down to 21,600, that'd still be positive in the sense that we're establishing higher lows even still. And that's what we're trying to look for. Okay, so again, it's the break in that trend that is going to be a potential problem. And we're not there yet. Okay, so again, further downside potential. I definitely think that we could and likely should see 22,000 tested, but on the same accord, I wouldn't be surprised if the price action continues to progress higher as well. Okay, we're getting close to this little breaking point here because we keep testing this area right around 24,000 and getting rejected. We test it a few more times and we'll be breaking through. In other words, the price comes up here, we'll likely break through and retest that as support and continue higher, or even come back down here to retest 24,000 and go up. Okay, so there's a couple of different scenarios that could unfold. That's the likely scenarios. Now, when it comes to big picture here, this just to kind of give you perspective, this line down, of course, here is that previous trend line. So keep in mind we're above that now. The likelihood of coming back down below that is pretty low. That should work essentially as a support level now. So the price action does retrace down to just say 20,000. We should essentially see that work as a support. Again, the fundamental catalyst, some kind of crazy nonsensical news, different story, but nonetheless, that is essentially a descending trend that we're out of and we broke free from. So it is pretty obvious that we are clear of that for the moment. Okay. The other things to note as well is we have this current descending trend that is soon to be tested, potentially today or tomorrow. If it continues to break down, it should continue all the way down to about 22,000. Once again, for this other ascending trend line to meet with it, this should be a point of contention right at 22,000. So I do feel if the price comes down to 22, we should see a bounce at that point. That seems very logical currently at this time frame, just based on what we can see here. We also want to look at the RSI too, and 50 on the RSI is coming closer. So again, the closer we get to 22,000 or this key level Fibonacci at 22.5, the more likely we are to see a bounce off of 50. Okay, now again, no guarantees there, but in most cases, you can see 50 on the RSI working as a strong support or resistance level, essentially telling you if this trend, this short-term trend, is bullish or bearish. We're still in a bullish trend because we are ascending and having higher lows. So we got to recognize that, again, the price action likelihood of going up from here is higher than it is going down, but it would make sense, of course, that it goes down for the next couple of days, perhaps even longer until it retests that level. All right, so again, just some stuff there in that sense to kind of think about. Take a look at the 4-hour. We'll probably see something similar on the RSI, whereas we're getting tentatively rejected by 50 on the RSI, which is essentially allowing us to continue to maintain this lower high pattern on the short-term time frame. So as we continue to progress lower, we're going to eventually have to hit some kind of support, which is this ascending type of trend / 22,500. So if the price does come down any lower, 22,000 and or 22,500 would seem like sensible areas in which the price should bounce. All right, again, getting up above 50 on the RSI on the 4-hour I think would be very helpful. We're not there yet. We are potentially converging on the MACD here, however. This is a good sign. In most cases, when you see a convergence on the MACD, it tells you that the shift in momentum has occurred. Obviously, we're not there yet, but we can see this momentum is losing essentially to the downside for the bears, right? So in essence, if this were to come up here and cross the basically the 26 intersects with a 12 in an upward fashion, that is effectively a convergence on the MACD. So that really tells us a lot about the overall direction and momentum, because you can kind of see how these shifts in momentum occur, in large massive swings in either direction. And the same thing happens with the price action too. They run fairly concurrent. So it is telling us that at this point, it's starting to lose its momentum to the downside because it's starting to slow down and there's more support being provided by not only the 50-day simple moving average, but in addition to that, it's also being provided, by the amount of volume increasing at this price point. Because with these wicks down here, it's basically telling us that it wants to turn around likely soon. Okay, so again, that's just kind of what I see here so far. It feels like there is a potential shift. Now, what we want to look at, of course, as well, is the Ichimoku cloud, because this is, again, one of those things that's in most cases runs concurrent with these descending type of trends. So I would be very surprised if the cloud isn't in this area here, kind of holding the price action down for the moment. We got to break above the cloud before we have any confidence in taking a long position, because once again, this descending trend should continue to maintain itself until it doesn't. So there is a likelihood of the price action getting rejected right around 23,200 if you were to come up to retest that level. So let's take a look at the cloud and kind of see where we're at. Big surprise, the cloud is kind of transitioning itself downwards, concurrent with this descending type of trend. And since we are below that, we need to recognize that we are going to continue to stay below until we break above, right? Same thing happened previously here when I covered this previously, saying, hey, this does not mean it's confirmation when the price action comes up and wicks into the cloud or even above it. We need to have full-on closure above the cloud in order to confirm that. So what we need to see here, of course, is for the price action to be somewhere in this range. I would say 23,400 or higher in the next 24 hours to effectively be able to put us in a position where we can continue to maintain higher highs and higher lows and change this shift in and basically shift this momentum. Because if you look at this here, you can see lower highs are still being printed. Okay, same with lower lows. Until that trend changes, we have to assume it's going to continue. Okay, so hypothetically, what we want to look for in the next 24 hours is for something to do, do one of these here, where we're establishing higher lows and likely potential higher highs. We don't necessarily have to have higher highs, but higher lows is the first thing you want to look for. Okay, so again, we're looking for higher lows with this transition here. So if this next push up can continue, we should be good to go. But again, still a little early and premature. Last thing to note too is that if you have a short position open for Bitcoin, hypothetically, the lagging span is intersection with the price action here soon. So kind of giving us that early indication that you may want to consider taking some profits if you haven't already. Furthermore, conversion lines below the baseline. So we basically have 2 out of 3 indicators here presently telling us that a short position is still viable and could continue to happen, at least to the downside. But again, what will likely happen, 1 of 2 things. The price will come up here, get rejected by the cloud, and continue lower to establish a lower high pattern. There's also an alternative, a beneficial one, whereas the price action comes up, establishes a higher low, and continues to retest these levels, and then moves up higher. That would be perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. We basically want to have the inverse of what we see here moved over to the other side, right? So in other words, have that staircase type of pattern occurring upwards, not downwards, and essentially getting us in a better position. See if there's anything else we can go ahead and identify. No, not a whole heck of a lot. We get a lot of resets. We did have a 9 here recently, but that would quickly reset. So, I mean, we are at a 4 right now. Hypothetically, we could see another 5 more hours of continuation of the upside. So, I mean, it does seem likely that we're going to see a little bit further of a push upwards. But again, I do think we're going to see some resistance not only at 23,500, but possibly even 23,200 to allow for the price action to stay in place and to continue to make lower lows and lower highs. So again, important stuff to recognize, but I think at this point, no trade is a good trade, honestly. It's just one of those things where you want to kind of, I would say, wait out the storm. There's a lot of fundamental stuff going on today too over in Taiwan, so make sure to check the news and kind of see what's going on there. A lot of violent swings here, and I don't really love the price action. But with these large wicks down, it is implying that it wants to try to turn around, but we need to see higher lows first. That's just kind of the bottom line. So I hope that this was educational for you and you learned a little something. Obviously, comment below if you did. And if not, that's okay too. Perhaps next time we'll speak to you. If you want to become a better trader though, I implore you. CryptoCache.tech is a site, link in the description below. Check that out in your own time and we'll go ahead and learn and grow together. It's an awesome experience. I look forward to working with you. You have yourself a great rest of your day. Thank you.